Hi, I'm Laurie and welcome to The Patient is Always Right. This is where myself and Derek, Ignite CEO and founder, have unfiltered real talk with guests from the aesthetics, medical, dental and wellness industries. No fluff, just the truth about building a business, facing challenges and working with patients in a fast-moving, ever-changing industry. We're bringing you the highs, the lows and everything in between. If you want honest conversations and real stories behind the success, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Patient is Always Right. Today we're joined by Dana Smith. With over a decade of experience in the aesthetic industry and having worked on both sides of the Atlantic, she offers a unique insight on the differences and similarities between the US and UK aesthetic markets. She's known for her education-first approach and remarkable results in both training and business development. Today she'll share what it really takes to thrive in a competitive industry. Hi, Dana. Welcome to The Patient is Always Right.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we've got lots to cover today.
Okay.
Lots of interesting topics, obviously, about the aesthetics industry and your experience. But I wanted to start with something fun.
Okay.
Like a quick fire warm-up round.
Okay.
So you're going to give me your first answer.
Okay.
Out of two.
Great.
So,
it's going to be tested. I love this.
Here we go. So, social media marketing or word of mouth?
Social media for massive marketing, word of mouth for building foundation, trust, and pure, like a true, good, solid patient base.
10K in new equipment or 10K in marketing?
10K in new equipment by far. I guess it really depends. And it's hard for me to just leave it there because it just really depends on where a clinic is at. There's so many factors you have to take a look at and evaluate all the different areas, whether it's marketing or the treatments you're offering. Are you able to offer the treatments that you want to be able to produce and the results you're wanting to give? And so it's all about evaluating all those different things within your clinic so you're able to make the correct choice moving forward.
No, absolutely. So this is a bit of a wild card, I guess. And probably a really hard one for you to answer, but here we go. So, American optimism or UK realism?
American optimism.
So, let's talk about your experience.
Okay.
You've had a unique experience when working in aesthetics from both sides of the Atlantic, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say surprised you the most when you entered the UK market? What was it that was like I did not see that coming?
The lack of resources. That would be a big thing. I mean, it's one thing to not have like an agency or a compliance board overseeing this and helping these physicians go. Even just education on laser physics or something like that, it just seems as though it's not as available or maybe it's just not as well known. And so when the resources aren't there, then it's just not, again, sought after and things. But honestly, I wasn't very surprised with the differences because I had a little bit in my mind of what to expect between the humans in those areas of the world.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your background. So you transitioned from orthodontics to aesthetics. What originally attracted you to the aesthetic industry?
So I was in orthodontics for about 10 to 12 years or whatever. And I'd really just kind of worked throughout the different positions in the clinics. And primarily spent most of my time there as what they call the treatment coordinator, which is really the consultant. I was doing these consultations back then, and I really loved it, but I was limited then at that point. I had done orthodontics for a really long time. I'm never going to be a person to just stay in a position and not grow. The only way you grow there is by going to dental school. So I went back to school with plans to go to dental school, and I went through a laser technician program. And that week, it was a 10-day program. I fell in love with it. I realized that I just wanted to be in a space that I can work with lasers. I geek out about it. I love it, I make someone feel good about themselves, and I'm good at it. And I love to train and just spread that knowledge and love for the industry because it's a big part of me and who I am.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's really interesting. So obviously, as someone who's worked in both markets, UK in particular, in terms of the US, it seems like they're a lot more regulatory in terms of what they have there, but in terms of their approach, they're very different in clinic as well. What do you think that the UK could learn from the US and vice versa? So if we start with the UK, what could the UK take from the US aesthetic market that maybe we're lacking or missing?
Transparency. I would think that for sure. The biggest difference I see with the opportunity of success and growing revenue and building patients, bases and all that kind of stuff is, I mean, not only the consultation, that's a huge part of it, but transparency when navigating the entire process, the patient's journey, because what happens is there's no system, and so, patients tend to not have a really good experience often based on the lack of setting up the right expectations, even this treatment, the downtime, the money, because of the fear of transparency. I've seen, I train in Ireland quite a bit, and it's worse there. Just, no one wants to talk about money. No one wants to say, you need this, this, and this. I've just seen so often the person providing the consultation does not have the ability to talk about money, to talk about what you really need versus what you came in for. So, I think there's some training behind that needs to be done. And so that's one thing. But the other thing is, Americans will say what they mean or what they want to say more often. They're not as scared to offend you.
And what would you say, is there anything that the US could learn from the UK?
Of course. Of course. There's this softness, and I see it with every type of medical professional or aesthetic professional or what have you. I think that the UK, the clinics I've been around, will take the time. They're worried a lot about safety. They do proceed with caution at a much higher rate, which actually is not a bad thing when we're talking putting a laser or a light on someone's face. I think that, crossing the T's and dotting the I's is something that they're really good at here as far as documenting and really taking good care. And I think the US could, but there's a lot of clinics that do that there too. In regards as a whole, I think that I think it's going to naturally progress and happen.
I do think that the UK in general with aesthetics is just a little bit behind, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Right, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, it's better to be, I don't think there's anything wrong with either one, to be honest. I think that it will be great for the UK to have some more regulations in place, so patients can feel safe too going to a clinic knowing that there are certain requirements. A laser's a pretty big deal. A needle's a pretty big deal to put,
Yeah.
And anyone in the UK, you don't even have to be a medical professional. You could literally just do Botox all day on people.
I think that's one of the things as a patient, it is quite hard to navigate who to go to because, as you said, if a beauty therapist, and I'm technically a beauty therapist, so not anything wrong with that, but if they can offer the same treatments as a dermatologist or a medical expert,
right?
Why would you choose the medical expert? That's the thing, because price-wise, there's quite a big difference.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it really hard. It's for the patient to be like, for example, I would probably, if I was going to have Botox or fillers, I would actually feel really, really safe in the hands of a dentist because they deal with the face all the time.
Yeah.
But that's me making that logical assumption. Might not be logical, but I think it is. But if it was a price thing, I might not. Because I can go and get it done cheaper. Like I can have a laser treatment. The laser might not be as good in a beauty salon because of price point. But there's no education really to educate the general public on why they should choose this clinic because they have the best laser. So I think that's where it also gets confusing.
I think doing your own research is key. And there's a lot of information here. Like just when I was researching to, identify the differences and key components of the US between the UK, like the NHS actually provides some decent information on laser and light, the treatments, the benefits, like some really good articles. So there's that. There's a website called realself.com, which is actually gold. If you go on, you can put in either I want treatment for my brown spots, or you can put in, BBL, which is a treatment that treats brown spots. And then it will find all of the physicians in your area that offer this. They have like a rating. It's a non-biased, forum for physicians and patients. And the physicians are simply offering their guidance through these treatments and stuff. It's a really good resource.
So you spent 11 years in orthodontics? So before jumping into aesthetics?
Yes.
Was there a specific moment that was like a real, like, this is it, I'm going to move into aesthetics?
Yeah.
Like, was that a thing?
Yes. I had quit working for, my main orthodontist that I was working with and enrolled in school, and then just went through this laser technician program, which happens to be one of the most elite resurfacing, like advanced training centers for laser and light in the U.S. It's in Arizona. And I went through this program. He's a nurse practitioner who owns it. He was just awesome. When you have a good teacher, it's like can change everything for you. So you go in, I sat down the first day, and the first component or the first part of our course for 10 days was about the consultation. It was about the patient. It was about just understanding the differences that we can make in patients' lives and really, what this industry is all about. I'm just obsessed with lasers. I really like them. I like how they function. I love all of it. So I went to, the school I was going to at the time, switched directions, started focusing, going towards nursing, and changed all of my classes and everything, and just stayed at that institute for the next 5 or 6 years. Larry Helwig is his name. He owns Clear Skin in Phoenix, where I worked originally. He worked with me every single day for like 8 hours on all the equipment in the office. It was like Cyton and Alma, and we had, all of these different products and technologies, and he just taught me everything. And we had tons of groups coming in, and he would just throw me in the fire and make me do the training. It was horrible. I mispronounced so many words. I just think that my opportunity was really good. And I think for me as a person, I love people, and I noticed straight away a change in them doing treatments and taking care of them. And, honestly, I was thinking about it this morning but when you get older, like sometimes it's actually really hard to take care of yourself as a woman. We do so much. We raise our kids, and this is fine. This is not man-hating, and we work full-time. We're trying to build something, and we're still in charge of the house stuff, so that, there's just so much that I think that we can just become so overwhelmed. I've seen it a million times, and it's hard to even just take care of yourself or feel worthy of it. We need to identify why they're really there and how we can really help them, which is always a slew of things. It could be, they have really bad acne. They're a kid. They're getting made fun of. They, have never done something like this for themselves in their life. Their spouse just passed away. They want to feel better. And these things make you feel better. It makes you feel better to go to the spa and get a massage. You're going to feel better when you do a little laser treatment, and a week later, your skin is glowing, and people are like, hey, what'd you do? It's magic. It is.
It is magic. You're right.
So,
I've personally experienced that just from like one treatment, feeling like completely renewed. It's true.
And when you look in the mirror and you just feel better about yourself, that's everything.
Exactly.
We need to just massively spread the word, love yourself, take care of yourself, because that is the key to happiness. So if we as providers and as a trainer can be a part of that, then that's awesome.
We've talked a bit about sort of the patient journey and consultations, but something that I think is becoming more obvious to me as a consumer is that I would say the US practitioners are so much better at social media than the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced that? Is that something you've noticed?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, particularly dermatologists, I absolutely devour US dermatology content. It's so good.
Yeah.
And the UK try, but they're not quite there. Like, there's some great dermatologists on UK socials, not taking away, but particularly the US are very, very good at that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's a confidence thing, or?
Yes. When it comes to putting yourself out there and being willing to look stupid, act stupid, be loud, put it in, like those things, sometimes you can kind of feel that way, I think, putting social media content up.
Yeah, and I think also, I guess, I don't know if this is something that maybe because the way socials have been looked at from a business perspective have been more sort of ingrained in US culture. So they see social media as a sales funnel, something we
100%.
Whereas the UK don't, I would say.
How would you say they perceive it?
Generally, I would say most aesthetic clinics see it as a hassle. Mm-hmm. They don't see it as a sales funnel. Mm-hmm. Social media is something they have to do because that's what Gen Z and millennials want.
Which, it is. My suggestion there would be to, as a clinic owner or a provider, whoever is running it, and they don't want to do it, hire someone that will do it. Hire a 25-year-old that's awesome with Instagram. You can trade a 25-year-old to do your social media and give them, a hydrofacial a month. And I'm not kidding. I did that stuff all the time at my clinic. It's like then you're like bringing in momentum and excitement and whatever. But hire someone then that sees the value in that. It's not that hard to do if you provide them with the content. I think the best way it can be utilized is through education so that patients can say, especially bringing up the point of the lack of awareness of how these treatments work, what to expect, who to go to. If they would bring out this valuable educational content, obviously they're going to build their reputation as someone who has high quality staff, good standards, and they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And they're showing before and afters and consistent before and afters, as long as it looks good and it's consistent and things. And there's so much value to that. I've seen it again and again with clinics.
Yeah. And Derek, I found, often says, the way he puts it, I'll try and get it right, but he essentially says that social media is almost like your way of doing hundreds of consultations at one time through your content.
It really is. That's a great point.
Yeah.
It really is.
Patient journeys, all of that is so valuable.
Yeah. That's something I learned actually in my clinic, because when I opened, I was already just well trained and experienced in the industry. And so, it can be a very confusing thing. What equipment do I buy? What treatments do I offer? It's just very, and so I just went in, I had, hired a staff, did all the things, but I chose not to hand off anything. I had an amazing assistant that helped me, but that is something to bring up, because so many clinic owners and physicians refuse to hand off and delegate and give away the control, even when it comes to something like social media. So then they're in control of it and it's not going to excel. So that would be a suggestion of mine, is take a look at the different avenues in your clinic and, just tackle what you're not good at.
We're seeing a shift away from, I would say, the classic fillers and Botox aesthetic angle to more non-invasive laser energy-based treatments. Why do you think that is, and what do you think is actually driving that?
Well, I think that is because these treatments that you're doing with laser are building more underneath, I would say. If I go in and have wrinkles on my forehead, obviously Botox is going to be the quickest fix. And I love Botox. I'll never stop getting it, even though no one can freeze me in this country. If you can freeze someone, call me. I'll come to you. I'm used to the U.S. and I've gone into clinics where I'm like, freeze me. And look at this movement. So much. I'm very animated. I need someone who will freeze me.
I'm sure you'll get some calls now.
But the results that you get from laser and light devices, in my experience, opinion, and scientifically, is most likely, not all of them, more sustainable. They're building collagen. They're doing more underneath that will be more long-term skin enhancement and skin health. But it's just an overall canvas improvement. Do I want to go in and just, spot treat my wrinkles? Or, do I want to do like a full BBL or Halo or Moxie? And it's like, your skin looks fabulous in every way. You're treating pigment and pores and lines and wrinkles and texture and everything all at once. And those results get better and better over time, because when you're using laser and light, and just remodeling collagen in general, it takes 90 to 180 days for that to fully maximize that benefit. And so you'll do a laser treatment, it just keeps getting better. And I just think that the results are a more natural enhancement.
Obviously, lasers have been around for a while, energy-based devices in general. But obviously, we're seeing a shift from, I would say, your classic aesthetics to longevity and wellness.
Yeah.
Would you say lasers fall into that naturally?
Oh my gosh, 100%.
They're kind of like the OG, right?
Yes. Yes, 100%.
And how do you think that will kind of grow over time? Do you think more people just start to see lasers in that bracket and market it that way, or do you think it's already happening?
Well, I know it's happening. If we wanted to go back and compare the two between the US and the UK, because it's not happening as much around here, maybe you haven't seen it as much, but it definitely has happened in the US long ago.
We're a bit behind. Actually, I'd say we're a lot behind UK for that, because we still see aesthetics within beauty, I would say. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I do think the same people that are, and not all, but most of the people that are into beauty probably are into aesthetics. It's just the next evolution.
Exactly.
And I do think sometimes we make a mistake of disregarding that audience, because actually they're probably the ones that they're getting their facials done, they're getting their hydrofacials, which kind of cross the line, and they're ready to look for more treatments. And that's where maybe laser comes in as a starting point.
Oh, 100%. Well, if I could suggest one thing, I mean, because there's many of things that do this, because, when you're looking at the options out there, you're going to find a few different outcomes, if you will. You have treatments that are going to provide more of a corrective outcome, that you're going to go through more downtime, whether that's resurfacing and you're removing deep lines. And then you have prevention, which is like these anti-aging treatments, which I'll go through one in just a moment. And then you have maintenance. And so all of them offer, of course, different outcomes, different downtimes. And the goal, because it's available, which only makes sense, is a combination of doing prevention, maintenance, and correction. The younger you start, the less you have to do. The biggest treatment that I would suggest is, and you've probably heard of it now, BBL. So BBL stands for broadband light. And I'll just go through this for the patients who are out there and they're wanting to look for something that provides correction, maintenance, and prevention, and it treats so many different things at once. It's the best treatment you can get. So it's called broadband light. It's by Cyton. It's visible light, which it's not a true laser, but if you've heard of IPL, which is intense pulse light, it's a different, it's a broader, if you will, broadband, option of the wavelength spectrum or the visible light. And so where IPL might be a little bit more limited in depth, maybe causing more limitations with anti-aging and collagen remodeling where we're trying to reach the dermis, BBL can kind of make up the difference. But my point on this is, we have a KOL in California who is somewhat responsible for paving the way, utilizing light in general. IPL, him and his father, they're both dermatologists in California, and in the 90s or late 80s, they started putting together these protocols utilizing visible light for pigmentation and for hemoglobin, because it can target, so you're treating vascular and pigmentation disorders. His patients would come in for a series of 3 treatments, and they would do what I call corrective treatments, where they're getting BBL, but I'm selectively trying to get rid of your browns, get rid of your vessels, your acne. It treats hair, it treats all of these things. And then once I've cleared all that up, we just go into a maintenance phase of a year, right? So this physician, Dr. Patrick Bitter, had been doing this for several years, because once BBL came out in 2004, he made the switch completely from IPL to BBL. So he starts to notice with his patients who are coming in for 5 to 10 years, a few times a year, he starts to notice that 5 to 10 years later, they're looking 5 to 10 years younger, like visibly. Their lines and wrinkles, not just their pigment, not just the vascular, which was the initial idea behind light in the aesthetics industry, because we're utilizing wavelengths that can see hemoglobin, that can see melanin. So we're using enough light and heat to destroy it. Whereas the expectation was not to see such a huge difference in laxity and lines and wrinkles and luminosity. So because of this awareness that came to them back then, Dr. Bitter and a few colleagues went to Stanford, which is an elite university in the States, and conducted a full case study on what the light does to the tissue and the cells at a genetic level over time. So this is how they did it. They took a group of 50-year-olds and they took a group of 30-year-olds. They sampled the tissue on their arm and they looked at the skin histology. And what they were looking at is the elasticity, the collagen, the youthfulness of the cells, right? And so if you look at like this genetic expression color coding system, let's say that, the aged cells are yellow and the blue cells are youthful, okay? So you have this group of 50, this group of 30-year-olds. Sample the tissue, the color coding comes back. The 50-year-olds, the yellow is dominant. Once you hit 30, your collagen starts to decline by 1 to 3% a year. So the 50-year-olds come back with the age as being dominant, and you can see the blue cells, but they're turned off. And then the opposite color coding, where the blue is dominant with the 30-year-olds because they haven't gotten there yet, and the aged cells are still turned off. They're not being, identified yet. So they then do 3 BBLs on the group of 50-year-olds, sampled their tissue again. And if you were to look at the color coding system and the cells at a genetic level, they actually started to reverse and mimic what those cells looked like on the 30-year-olds. And so through this case study at Stanford, it's the only scientifically proven anti-aging treatment in the industry ever. Like, if you think about that, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Anti-aging, proven scientifically. And it is literally turning back the hands of time. Even if I'm a 25-year-old and I don't have freckles, and I don't have reds. Soon enough, I'm going to need to start doing some preventative. So BBL is something to look into. And I would say from starting at like 25.
Yeah, and that definitely falls into wellness and longevity. Like, that's it. Like,
that's right.
longevity.
Exactly.
So yeah, with your vast experience in aesthetics, what are the top 3 reasons that you think aesthetic businesses, particularly in the UK, fail?
I think maybe they're focusing on the wrong things. The foundation needs to be laid a little bit more. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, just making sure that, like, you know, there's a proper consultation process in place, a process from start to finish, identifying everyone's roles, and just making sure that there's a seamless experience.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, I think while I'm talking to you, I'm thinking of lots of reasons why I feel like we've turned this into a US versus the UK, but there is a lot that we can learn from the US. And I think one of them is customer service, which is the fundamental of patient journey, right? And I think we aren't the best at customer service in this country.
Yeah.
Just go into a supermarket, you're very lucky if anyone says hello to you. Whereas in the US, you walk in, everyone says hi.
Right.
And I think it starts there.
Yeah.
And I do think that, like, I particularly give aesthetic clinics a hard time when it comes to consultations, but I kind of forget, like what you said, it's the fundamental of customer service. It's that whole journey, as you said, passing the baton from one person to another to another. And I do think that's where we really do need education. And I think it sounds like your course is kind of like,
well, my course is going to
need.
be epic. And I'm just so excited about it because I think it's actually really going to help the clinics. Like, I have it set in many modules of, like, you know, managing patient expectations, but that, you know, along that will go like adverse reaction, managing all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's several modules within it because it's just an well-oiled machine, you know? And you're right, customer service is huge. And just because it's different here and I walk in Sainsbury's, no one's nice, that doesn't mean that it's okay to do it in your clinic.
Absolutely
you know,
not.
like I'm there paying $1,000 for, you know, for the one treatment that's going to be an hour or whatever. Be nice. Take care of them. Be kind. Cheer up their day. Like, I know it's hard, but it shouldn't be.
And jumping back to social media, because I think this is also where clinics fail. One thing that I've found really interesting, that I'm not going to name the device, but there's a device that's very, very popular in the US. And essentially it's an ultrasound device, right? And I've found here it's really hard to market because we have a perception as the UK public, to be fair, this treatment is painful, I've had it, but without pain there is no beauty. So I think the same thing applies with laser. Like they might not think of laser as the first choice of regenerative treatment or preventative treatment. And this particular device I have in mind, the reason why I use this one as an example is because the clinics aren't educating the patients on why they should have this treatment, because it's not about just now. And I think that goes back to like the customer service thing. Like, we have a really bad habit, and I'm putting myself in this bracket because I've been there in the aesthetic industry, of assuming that the patient knows the answer or the patient should just get it, but they don't. And that's why you use your social media to educate, because I went and had this treatment done because I was doing it for a shoot, and I have seen amazing results off the back of it personally. And I can really look at pictures and see, wow, like I see a real difference. And I feel like it's setting me up for the future as well. But maybe because I'm in the industry, I feel like that. But I've never been on anyone's social media where they're talking about it in that way. It's just about, oh, look great in 6 months' time. No, it's more than that. It's about the ongoing journey. It's about what's going to happen.
I agree. And it would be nice for clinics to definitely use that on their social media, but it needs to be in the consultation. Like, you know, so often, like, you're right, they need to do that on the social media, but they need to be telling their patients, like, that's all part of it. Why are we not setting up the expectations of downtime, showing them photos, healing diaries, I mean, possible complications? Like, that is part of it.
In the UK, the customer service starts with your social media. It starts with your front of house. They need to be educated in order for them to answer the phone and say, oh, this is my issue. What can I have? I'm not saying they give a consultation, but they can give some advice. And you know what? That advice actually helps them to feel comfortable to book a consultation. And if you're charging for a consultation, you're more likely to convert that person on the phone into a payable consultation if your front of house is informed enough to give them the advice on why they should have the consultation.
It's their job. The one goal when you answer the phone or you make that first call or text or email is to book the consultation and make sure they get there. Like, it's not answering the phone and putting them in the schedule. It's educating them, setting up the right expectations so that they show up ready. They show up without makeup. They show up, if they're having a treatment or they might want to have a treatment, talking about the contraindications. Like, you're right. That is the biggest thing. It's like showing up anywhere and not having the expectations set properly. You walk in, you feel frazzled. They're like pushing you through rooms. I mean, no. And it needs to be from the very first interaction, not just when you're walking in the front door. It's like that first phone call could make or break everything. I know clinics that have fabulous front of house. And if you talk to someone on the phone that, you're interacting well with, you feel heard and listened, and they, give you all the information needed, where to park when you come, what time to arrive, all of that, it makes a huge difference in the experience and the ability or the desire to move forward.
Absolutely. In your opinion, let's start with a minimum. What's the minimum consultation time you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question because I've been changing my mind on that lately. So I've always spent an hour. I learned it that way originally. And then, when I set up my own clinic, I had a space that was meant for the consultation. There was a 60-inch screen TV. We sat down, did Vizia photos. It's a whole thing because I'm building their journey with me, However, a lot of the clinics can't do that. That's a long time. And you're not going to sell them into doing that. I think 15 minutes is fine. How efficient are you? It could be 15 minutes of la la la. Here's your pictures. Oh, we could do microneedling. Or it could be 15 minutes of, okay, so awesome. Come sit in here. La 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 la. Build rapport. So tell me while you're in. We're taking photos. We're assessing. I talk to you about it. I listen. Oh, I can totally understand. I mean, like, if you know how to do a consultation, you can do it in 10 minutes. And so it's all about putting together the right tools that will help you do that. Do I have a skin analysis system showing what I'm talking about? I used to answer that question like at least 30 minutes, no less than 15 for sure. And I would really suggest 30. But if you cannot do that, you can make a consultation awesome in 15 minutes. Be prompt, be precise, have a plan, tell them their options, and that's great. What would you say on that?
I would say 30 minutes usually. Like, I used to do consultations. That was pretty much my job. And 30 minutes was perfect for me.
Yeah.
And I felt like
30 minutes is good.
It was enough time to talk about current situation, future. If they
and
don't
become
do some
friends.
Exactly.
You want to spend time like, just like connecting.
They're more likely to come back. Even if they don't say yes in that moment, they're more likely to come back if they've built the rapport.
Yeah.
So for me, 30 minutes was perfect. I don't think I was probably skilled enough to do it in 15 minutes because I want to also assess everything and digest it myself. And I think 30 minutes was sort of the perfect for me. I see a lot of new clinics in particular coming through us as a digital marketing agency that might have been open for a year or maybe slightly less, and they have bought a suite of devices. They have spent 500,000, let's say, minimum, on some of the best technology you can find. And I'm an outsider, never worked for a device manufacturer, but what I would think is, isn't it better to focus on one really good device and build up your client base there before buying a suite? Like, what do you think about that?
Is this a commercial for Saiton?
Oh, go for it. This is a genuine question.
Well, so that's a great question because that is a very common thing to happen everywhere in the world. And a lot of times it's because, you have these devices that have one or two applications or modules or wavelengths on them. Whereas, honestly, Saiton, they have two platforms. And you build it the way you want to. There's several modules to go with. You have broadband light, you have resurfacing, you have levels of resurfacing, you have 1064. You can treat all kinds of hair removal and laxity and acne and warts and all this stuff. So really, you can treat everything. And the thought behind that is, first of all, it's an expandable platform. So you can buy a device, put BBL on it, and add to it later. And there's only two platforms so that they're meant to stay the same, and you can have the same one for 20 years and be awesome and add as you go. So whether it's Saiton or not, of course, you want to, be able to offer enough. But here's my suggestion. You actually just need a few things. You need a light, a visible light, whether it's an IPL or BBL. It's just, number one, it's very well known to patients. And, again, more so in the US, and I don't say that to be whatever, but it will happen here. People know what IPL is. It's called photofacial in the US. But, a photo spectrum, BBL would blow your mind. You buy one BBL, you have pigmentation, vascular full body, hair removal, skin tightening, active acne. So buy something that is going to stretch across several treatment indications and patient-based possibilities, meaning skin types that just really cater to your clinic. And yes, like you should be building. The clinics I've seen that are most successful started out one doctor in a little tiny room with one laser and injectables, and then you get awesome and you build like all of your clinic base and your social media, and you just grow from there. And not to say to start that small, but there's no reason to go nuts. Then you're overwhelmed and you have all of this stuff that you don't even know how to use anyway.
Absolutely.
To be honest.
No, that's a really good way of saying it. And obviously feel free to plug Sciton. But yeah, it's something that I think we see more and more within Ignite, you know, like coming and wanting to market 3 devices, and it's like, whoa, let's start with one. And I think that is sort of an indication of how you should think as a business. Like, get one off the ground, really like grow that, and they'll say to your clients, will tell you what they want next. This is the thing. Like, if you're doing something that's for pigmentation, they think, well, actually, you know what, I'm really concerned about my body. Well, then maybe invest in a body device next.
Exactly.
Like, this is how
you don't know what you need yet. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So you show up, you get like, you know, of course, the areas in which you want to focus that will cater to the demographics that you're treating, and start there and become awesome.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course, thanks for having me. It was so fun.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered loads, and particularly the patient journey is a really interesting one. I've not got to talk too much about with someone, so I've really enjoyed chatting about that.
You too.
Yeah. If you could tell the audience where they can find you, find out more about you and your education, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. So my company is called Laser Smart Skin and Body, and so you can find me, of course, on Instagram at LaserSmartSkin, and my email is lasersmartskin@gmail. And what I offer is I'm a training and consulting business. And for now, it's just me. I work with clinics one-on-one to build consultation processes, customized training, meaning like we can do combination therapy, whether it's Sciton, Cynosure, Cutera, BTL, you name it. Alma, I've worked with it. And my goal really would be to come in and work with you one-on-one, or I offer you to look at my online platform as well. Find me on Instagram. And then DM me if you want to know more about my services. But I've been working with laser equipment for about 13 years now. And I'm really good at just, you know, creating a nice ambiance within the clinic and the team and working together, navigating the patient. And I rock it at consultations. So give me a call.
Thank you so much. I love that. That's the best one we've had so far.
Oh, good.
Sell yourself. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely chatting with you.
I appreciate it.
No worries. As you've noticed, the mood has changed.
Yes.
The lights have lowered.
Yes.
Because obviously this is called The Patient is Always Right.
Yeah.
So we couldn't really talk about that subject without actually finding out your patient stories.
Yes.
Now, we've asked a couple of different versions of this, but I feel like you're going to tell us a great story anyway. So I'm going to keep it very, just going to let you speak. But we'll start by saying, obviously, no names.
Yeah.
Feel free to change pronouns.
Okay.
Anything that's not going to get us sued, we love. But if you could tell us your funniest, craziest patient story.
Well, I actually have a few, but I'll go with this one. I'm at my clinic, and of course I offered hair removal. And I had this one patient, and, you know, this little dude who was maybe like 10 inches taller than me. Now, this cool little dude, whatever. And I was doing hair removal from head to toe, right?
Okay.
Head to toe. So we're at the point of hands and knees.
Okay.
And I had I just had like a regular treatment bed that wasn't electric or automatic. So those ones tend to have like a bit of a sway. They don't balance very well if you move your body in any type of direction. I mean, they weren't cheap, but whatever. So he's on all fours. And I have my handpiece, and I'm in the back doing my job. And he leaned forward. So imagine this massive room, and he's naked from head to toe. And he leans forward to the point where the bed loses its balance forward. And he literally flew off the bed, naked, in the air, and ran and hit his head into the cabinets on the floor.
Oh, no. Oh, bless him. Completely naked. What did you even do?
We laughed for like an hour. We could not stop laughing. He was so cool about it. I was like, oh my gosh.
I can actually picture it.
So lock your beds.
Okay, yes. For anyone listening, lock your beds. I mean, that is a brilliant one. I literally was, as you were saying it, I was taking myself through it and I was just like, okay.
I mean, I'll never forget that. And the only reason why I like to describe him, because he was just such a cute little dude, you know? He was just like half my size and just like, woo! It reminded me of, have you seen Spaceballs? Please tell me.
No, I haven't. I feel like
everyone that's watching this, when Rick Moranis says ludicrous speech, and then he goes and they push stop and he flies through the thing, that's what it looks like. So watch it on Spaceballs.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I love that. My next question was like, can you share an embarrassing or cringy story? But
see, that's the difference between the US and the UK. If I told people that story in the US, it would have been the funny one.
But it's funny, to be fair. But I think, you know what?
Not embarrassing. It's just funny.
No, and I think I could see it 100% from his perspective why he would be laughing as well. Because I think
it's fine.
Final question, and the question that we ask everyone in the confessional: is the patient always right?
No.
Expand. Tell us more.
No way. The patient is only right if you don't follow through on the expectations that you set. You know, because like, how can you be right when the knowledge isn't there? So like, you know, I just think that we've taken that too far sometimes. This is actually a part of my course because so often clinics will say that, and I'm not saying that that's the wrong way, but then they offer a treatment plan of any kind, and it's going to be this and this and this, knowing that this person is on the beach every other weekend. They're not going to stay out of the sun. Knowing they finally showed up and the 3 other times they no-showed. Knowing that they're going to have to take a loan on their house to get the treatment. So it's part of our responsibility to offer a feasible option in order to help them be successful, number one. And so it's all about that dance. But no, I don't think the patient is always right. I really don't. I mean, I think that it depends on how you run your clinic, because you do have a big job in your hands as far as navigating their journey, setting up all the right expectations, documenting well so that you can constantly follow their journey and make modifications as needed. There's a lot to that, but you can have a patient that's a total a-hole and they think they know right, but they just don't know. So it's our job to educate. And then a lot of times you just don't have those interactions. You really don't. Life is easy when you just learn how to communicate, you know, and a lot of people, sadly, the people you're talking to don't, but you keep your boundaries and stand strong with, you know, because as a clinic, you need to have those boundaries and that structured process as well. You can't just let all these patients who are feeling, you know, overcharged or not taken care of or underwhelmed or whatever, you know, do your job of setting the expectations and then be happy with your job. And, you know, at times you do just have to let the patient be mad. I know that sounds horrible, but you do, because there's, you know, all kinds of patients.
And also, I think you just got to set yourself up for success.
Everyone, the team, they need to know their real job responsibilities and roles and how we work together as a team to navigate this process with the consultation. The clinic owner, they need to offer, you know, treatments and give them perks for being in this industry and build bond, you know, rapport together and go out together so that you have an awesome environment so that when a patient walks in, they can feel that. I don't like walking into a clinic and the people don't like each other and they're blaming each other and they're grumpy and all of those things. It's like, no, thank you. And I don't want a clinic to be that way as an owner or as a staff member, because as a staff member, you work so hard. And a lot of times the, you know, appreciation or acknowledgement potentially is not there. So I just think that it's taking a look at the different things, making sure you have a system in place, you've set up expectations for everyone, and then follow through, you know?
Love it.
So,
well, thank you for sharing your perspective, and thank you for confessing.
Yes.
Love hearing the real stories behind the aesthetics, medical and dental industries? Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Patient Is Always Right for exclusive content. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to watch the full episodes on YouTube. Hit follow, subscribe, and stay tuned.